If you want to know what the best Hearthstone decks in the meta right now are, you came to the right place. In this video, I will show you 5 of the best Hearthstone decks right now, and we will go into detail about some tips for them, their matchups, as well as their mulligan guide. But we will also go over every single class and see what archetype is working for them as well, so stick around to the end. If you're serious about Hearthstone, definitely consider subscribing, and also don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching, and you can be sure I will do my best to make you a better Hearthstone player. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be Thief Rogue, because this is actually one of the best decks in the game right now, especially in top 1000 Legend. So if you want to be climbing high ranks, as well as just easy Legend, this might be a great deck for you to choose. Thief Rogue got some pretty cool new support from the mini set, and now you can actually go for some secret shenanigans with Rogue again. You have a lot of high roll potential with all the cards you can be discovering, but you also have a lot of hand disruption for the opponent as well, with your Ghastly Gravediggers, as well as your Teotar. And having the ability to also Shadow Step those and play them multiple times is just icing on the cake. You can also tempo out a lot of BS with cards like Jackpot, comboed with Swift Scale Trickster, and you also have tons of card draw with your Sprint, which can also be cast for less than 4 mana. You can repeat all of the BS that you have discovered throughout the game with cards like Contraband Stash and Tess, and you can also repeat that several times. And having these cards repeat everything you've cast all game is something you really need to think about when you decide what cards you're gonna be picking up, and also if you're ever playing these cards ever, because if you picked up a ton of board clears and you actually have already established somewhat of a board, you probably don't want to be repeating all of that. And also don't be too greedy with the card draw too, because when you start repeating all of these, you might end up fatiguing yourself or just burning some core pieces. Like let's say Siren Aphrius, which is also in this deck, and it feels super disgusting when you win with it. But then again, that can be said about any class in Hearthstone right now, right? Getting some random class secrets from Perjury can be extremely strong, and even though you're getting a random secret, your opponent is still probably gonna want to test for the bigger hitters. Let's say things like Counterspell and Objection can be an absolute deal breaker for the opponent, and they will probably need to skip a turn testing for those before they actually can develop their game plan. So even if you don't discover the perfect mage secret out of this, you still probably want to be picking up a mage secret, no matter how useless it is, just because your opponent is probably gonna lose their mind playing around it. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like. Kris Imp Warlock's gonna be under 50 it seems, even though you do definitely have a shot at it. Ram Druid might be too hard, and same can be said for Fel Demon Hunter. But again, this deck really is high skill capped, so if you know what you're doing, these stats are going to be very different. Mulligan wise, this is what it looks like, and it's kinda not enough stats to really get a great idea of what you need to be doing, but you can still figure out some of the bigger picture here. Depending on the matchup, you might consider keeping some removal, but also things like Sketchy Stranger can be pretty good for you. Private Eye is also pretty good tempo, and having Saturday Aphrius in your opening hand might also be a good idea in most of the slow matchups. When on the coin, it's kind of the same. Queen Ashara becomes very keepable too. Reconnaissance is great. Wild Pugnull pretty good as well. And Jackpot, and in general your good early game cards are always gonna be great keeps. For other good rogue decks right now, Miracle Rogue is actually pretty insane and super high rolly. But for now, as you can see, Thief Rogue seems to be a lot more reliable and with a lot bigger of a sample size. But yeah, if you're into that Miracle Rogue playstyle, you might want to give Edwin Rogue another go. There's also other variants with things like Frostwolf Warmaster, as well as Scrabbling Stenographer, and there's also Shark Rogues out there, even though I can't really see them from the above 50 so far. Mine Rogue is still barely playable, and yeah, here's that Miracle Shark Rogue I was talking about, but the win rate for it is just not amazing so far, huh? On the number 2 spot, Kris Imp Warlock is still doing amazingly strong right now, and I gotta say, this is probably one of the easiest decks you could be hitting Legend with. People still don't know how to play around it, they still play out your cheap curses, and they still open themselves up to multiple curses a turn, so if you know what you're doing with this deck, climbing should not be a problem. I've already talked about this deck several times, so no need to go into details much. The gist of it is, you want to tempo out early with your good imps and get some good board damage, and when you lose the board, you just transition to control and slap him with a bunch of curses. And that is usually enough to take the win. You can check out my detailed coaching sessions about it, so you have a better idea what you need to be doing with this deck. Matchup wise, we have very populated stats. Aggro Demon Hunter is gonna be a little bit too fast for you. Quest Hunter, if you manage to find one, is gonna be pretty happy. because you basically help them complete their quest. Blessed Priest and Naga Priest are absolutely disgusting for you, and I'd say those are the biggest counters for you. Miracle Rogues and Mind Rogues are also a little bit too quick, and Enrage Warrior and Charge Warrior are actually pretty good against you as well, because the thing about Charge Warrior is they can win from hand, and they also have tons of armor, and they're not afraid of keeping big hand sizes, as long as you don't manage to burn a core piece for them, that is. Enrage Warrior, on the other hand, is also a little bit too quick, and they have a lot of early game healthy minions that you will have hard time dealing with. So you will have to be very controlly against them, and even then it's not a given that you're gonna be taking the win. Mulligan wise, first and second, your good imp cards are always gonna be great, Flustered Librarian as well. Flame Imp too, but don't keep too many 1-drops, like if you have all 3 of the 1-drops, maybe you drop the Flame Imp. Mischievous Imp is great, especially if you have some curve going already, and same can be said for things like Vile Library and Impending Catastrophe, but you can't really afford to be keeping all these free, unless you already have, like, I don't know, maybe a Wicked Shipment at least. Imp King Rafam, again, if you're curving into it, is not a bad keep. Things like Cultist and Drag Below, though, you don't really want to be keeping them. They're okay top decks, but you really don't want to be keeping suboptimal cards like that. You really want your good early game, and you should be curving out into something like this anyway, so that's fine. When on the coin, the situation is similar, but things like Impending Catastrophe become a lot more keepable, and you could even just keep Catastrophe without having any other good card already, and just hope that you get your good imp cards, and that usually is okay. Rafam is a little bit more keepable as well, but basically still look out for the good 1-drops and for your good imp cards. Depending on the matchup, you might actually keep something like Grimoire Sacrifice or Touch of Naphrazim, basically against Warlocks and Druids, because they can really tempo against you as well. But yeah, that's about it. For other good Warlock decks, just Imp Warlock is also doing pretty fine, and there's also variants of the Cursed Imp Warlock with things like Viper included, so if you're looking for things to cut, seems like Flame Imp is one of the cards they choose, also one less Touch of Naphrazim can work, but yeah, all around, Imp Curse Warlock is looking pretty good right now. Other than that, there's a 40 variant of a Curse Warlock, but it's under 50%, so yeah, not as amazing. On the number 3 spot is the counter to Curse Warlocks, which is Naga Priest, like I said. Naga Priest is super solid right now, as long as you don't manage to find too many paladins against you, because that really wrecks this deck. The deck is not simple to pilot, but if you're facing too many Warlocks, you might just give it a go, and you're gonna see how good it is. The main reason for that is Shadow Word Devour basically deletes most of the Curse Warlock boards, and also they can't really handle things above 10 health, which are pretty easy for you to build, so you could literally kill them as soon as turn 4 and 5 with some very big Radiant Elemental plus a big boon. This variant is a little bit more flexible than the Just Boom Priest, because you have all sorts of minions, and the opponent is gonna have to keep on clearing everything you leave on the board, because a turn where you are left with an attacking minion could be their last. Matchup wise, there are some pretty polarizing ones, and like I said, Control Paladin is gonna be absolutely disgusting for you, and same can be said for other Control-y priests. Control Shaman is also not great, Thief Rogue seems to be on the downside for you as well, Big Spell Mage is gonna freeze you a lot, and also Beast Hunter is not super amazing, but I would assume this would be a variant with Tarantulas, because just Beast Hunter should be a pretty good matchup for you. For the mulligan, you're looking for your Wigs obviously, and for your good cheap Nagas. Depending on the matchup, Shadow Word Devourer can be pretty amazing, Murkwater Scribe, Treasure Guard as well, and if you're already curving out with a good 1-drop, Amalgam is also pretty cool. Going second, you will be able to keep the Handmaiden as well, because you do have one extra spell, so it's gonna be easier for you to pull it off. Location is also not bad when going second and when going first, and still your good early game minions and your Serpent Wigs. For other good priest decks, Quest Priest is still great, the Boom Priest that I was talking about is also pretty decent, but it is again not an easy deck to pilot optimally, so the stats are not as what they should be. And Boar Priest is still close to 50, but it's again one of the hardest decks to really pilot optimally, so these stats can be a lot better than this. Thief Priest is also arguably a bit better than what the stats show here, but again, it is pretty challenging. On the number 4 spot, we have Control Paladin again, and this deck is really disgusting to be playing against right now. Like, it really feels like you're playing against a Control-y Priest, but somehow worse. The deck is jam-packed with so much high-impact cards, And with the new card they received from Order in the Court, it's very easy to pull off your good game plan. The deck finishes off with Sardanaphrus, which is a great way for you to be really pumping some numbers for him, because you will be able to get him in your hand relatively early. You also have Carriel, obviously, Leviathan, and you also have Mistress Might, which you should be getting by the time you actually are in Lightforce Carriel, and that way you get to buff him really big, really fast. You have a ton of control-y tools with City Tax, Equality, Samuro, Carriel, Spammy Arcanist, and you also have stuff like Teotar and Sylvanas to be extra disgusting. There's also variants that run extra board clears, with things like Consecration or that other guy that deals 1 damage AoE. But yeah, right now this is a very good deck to be playing with, even though the games are a bit slow. So if you want to be doing a fast climb, it might not be for you, and also the price tag is kinda high too, so there's that. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like. Fel Demon Hunter, Ram Druid, other control paladins, and control shamans will not be great for you, but everything else looks pretty good. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like when going first, and you want to basically be curving out, but also keeping things like Carriel or Sardanaphrus can make sense, and depending on the matchup you might want to be keeping some decent removals for them as well. When going second, feels a little odd that Sylvanas is this high on the keep list, but yeah, depending on the matchup, it's definitely gonna vary a lot. Being a control-y deck, you wanna be really thinking about what kind of tools you will be needing against each individual opponent, and mulligan accordingly. Be careful not to be playing your Order in the Court too early, because you don't want to brick yourself with all of those high-cost cards too early. For other good Paladin decks, we have several iterations of Control Paladin, ones that run Jailer, and others that are just finishing off with Denafrius. Pure Paladin is still usable. There's also a Highlander variant that basically becomes Highlander once you play the Jailer, but the others are not doing as great. Silverhand Paladin is under 50%, and Mech Paladin doesn't seem to exist right now. And on the number 5 spot, we still have Beast Hunter, which is still doing pretty good even after several nerfs hit. The deck is not as amazing in top 1000 Legend anymore, even though I did climb with it almost into top 100. I'd say it takes a lot more experience with this deck to actually be doing well on those ranks. This variant is still running the 2 Tarantulas plus the Devouring Swarm, which honestly nowadays feel like they're not as important because somehow you're not seeing any priests anymore. But still, you might want to consider removing 1 Tarantula for something else right now. I've done several videos about this deck anyway, so you might want to check out those detailed guides and coaching sessions for it if you want to learn better how to play this deck. Matchup wise, here's what it looks like right now. And from experience, Curse Warlock is actually a pretty hard matchup if the Curse Warlock knows what they're doing. And also Miracle Rogues might be a little bit too fast for you as well if you manage to find them. Mulligan wise, you really want to be curving out well with a good 1-drop into a good 2-drop like a Spirit Poacher or Doggy Biscuit or even K9atron. And on turn 3, Wild Spirits or your weapon can feel pretty amazing as well. If you're already curving out decently, Pet Collector can be a keep, and same goes for Asheron Saber. Beastalker Tavish might also make the cut in that case. When on the coin, here's what it looks like, and again keeping a good 1-drop into a 2, and again Weapon plus Wild Spirits are your go-to cards. Pet Collector again is pretty keepable even if you're not curving into it anymore, and even Hydrola might make the cut honestly. Feels like Frenzied Felfangs are a little too high on the keep list here, and also Sardanaphrus might not be a bad idea as well depending on the matchup. All around, for Hunter right now, the best performers are still 40 Beast decks, but there's also an interesting Beast Hunter with only 30 cards doing surprisingly well again. So yeah, if you want a little bit more consistent experience, this might be the deck to go for. Quest Hunter is just under 50%, so it's not as amazing, and the other iterations are not great either. That's it for the 5 decks. Now let's head on down to the other classes we haven't mentioned so far, starting off with Demon Hunter, where Fel Demon Hunter is still at the top. Aggro Demon Hunter actually has a decent win rate even in top 1000 Legend, but maybe that was just a flavor of the day kind of deal because I'm not seeing too much of those. And also Just Relic Demon Hunter is still doing acceptably well. For Druid we still have Aggro Druid being the best and cheapest deck for easy Legend, but also Ram Druid is still usable, and there are different iterations for it with Naga Giants as well as Jailer, and basically other different variants of those. For mages, it's still Big Spell Mage, Spooky Mage, both with the 30 and 40 variants, but also Secret Mage is actually usable from Diamond to Legend because people are not very good at playing around secrets. With Shamans, Control Shaman is your only go-to deck right now. Murloc Shaman is at exactly 50% right now, so you're still gonna be able to climb, it's just not gonna be very good. And for Warrior, Enraged Warrior has some decent stats on not so big sample sizes. Quest Warrior is somewhat usable again, and Control Warrior, not amazing it seems. Charge Warrior seemed like it's gonna be taking a comeback, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the next few weeks. Don't forget to like and comment under the video, and also subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.